Greetings and welcome back to our study on becoming God's people and what it means to be God's people when we look at Genesis through Deuteronomy and how we can learn from Israel. This week we are talking about Exodus 17, the second half of Exodus 17, where God provides victory for the people of Israel over the Amalekites. My reflection is going to go on to talk about the actual passage and how God protects and provides for the people, even in the midst of battle and war, and how God's provision works, and a little bit into the irony that this is a battle, and we aren't told about the battle. Moses is mentioned, Moses lifting his hands up as a um, mediation in some respects for Israel, but we're not told about Joshua's victory and how the victory happened. We're just told that Moses' mediation was the key to the Israelite victory. And that's where I'm going to go. But I wanted to give a little bit of background on the Amalekites and who they were, might have been, and how they impact the story of the Bible. So the first time we meet Amalek is in Genesis 36. He's listed as one of the grandsons of Esau, uh, Jacob's son Esau, whose brother is Isaac, the father of Jacob and the ancestor of the Israelites. So Amalek is distantly related to the people of Israel. This is important. All of these foes have connections to Israel in some way, shape, or form, um, and how they have connection is important for understanding kind of where they fit in the story. And this is, we should recognize a sibling rivalry. This is a family squabble. But Amalek will attack Israel unprovoked. Instead of being the good family that they should be, there is a bitter rivalry and a senseless kind of violent attack against Israel when there's no provocation. So Amalek comes from Esau. We do notice that the Bible describes Amalek as descended from a concubine, a secondary wife, not a top tier wife. While Amalek would be descended as a legitimate son, the idea that he comes from a secondary wife means that he is secondary in nature. He's not elevated to the level of Esau's other sons. And that's an important detail. It kind of tells us something about how the biblical author thinks of this people group. They are of secondary importance. We see the same thing when the Bible talks about the founding or the founding fathers of the Ammonites and the Moabites, where they are descendants of Lot, again cousins of the Israelites, but they are the results of incest. And so it's kind of this backhanded slap at the people group who is supposed to be family, but there's really kind of a black sheep idea behind them. They're family, but they're not the good family. They're not the legitimate family, like some of the other members of Esau's family who will help the people of Israel. And those are the people who the Bible will say these are the good family members, not these Amalekites who are just trying to be better than they really are. They're descendants of a secondary wife. They're not as good as all of the rest of us. The Amalekites, though, they come back again and again. This is a people group that does not go away. They recur in Israelites' history. They are mentioned in 1 Samuel twice. 1 Samuel 15, Saul goes after the Amalekites to repulse an attack that they make on Israel. And then again, David goes after the Amalekites after he and his men are away raiding, and an Amalekite band raids David's home and takes him and his men's wives and families prisoner. We notice that the Amalekites are always the aggressors. They are never attacked by Israel. It's always the Amalekites who do the attacking. They're always the aggressors in these accounts. And so what the Bible tells us is they are a people group who, unprovoked, will attack. They are a warring people. They're a warlike people. They go to battle and they force Israel into war. It is never Israel out looking for land and trying to attack this people group. It's always Israel responding to the Amalekites. This is important. It kind of teaches us something about the people, that God will eventually say wipe them out. The reason is, and this is a difficult section because of the violence, where we say, does God really want them to physically eliminate every single person? But the rationale is their mentality is so contrary to what God wants to do that they need to be wiped out. Historically, we can't find record of this group. So were they a real people? Probably, but we don't know who to identify them with. We don't know how to fit them into known history. We don't know exactly where they lived or who they were. It becomes fuzzy. Did God literally tell the people of Israel to eliminate them and exterminate them as a whole people? It doesn't seem like that. Rather, it seems like what these battles are about are God saying to the people, don't become like them. Exterminate this kind of thinking, this kind of worldview, this kind of mentality from your minds and the people around you. It is not necessarily a prescription for the literal destruction of every person who is a part of this family group. There's a huge difference, and we need to pay attention to that. But this Amalekite group is singled out for destruction, partially, if not wholly, because they routinely attack the Israelites without provocation. They just don't want to live at peace with their neighbors. And they become a kind of foil for Israel. They become a mythical people group that is just bounded by evil. And we see this brought up in the book of Esther, which is the last mention of the Amalekites. And it's a roundabout mentioning, it's not direct. Haman, who is the great enemy of the Jewish people in that book, is descended from Agag. The only other Agag in the Bible is Agag the Amalekite from 1 Samuel 15, who Saul defeats in battle and Samuel kills. The clear line of thought is that Haman is supposed to be the last incarnation of the Amalekites, who are still without provocation trying to destroy and eliminate Israel. And it just shows how evil they are. But it also reminds us of King Agag in 1 Samuel, who is an Amalekite and also descended from the group of people who were said to be the evil people who brought about the flood. Now, I know that we are used to an interpretation and understanding of the biblical flood account that says the only people to survive were Noah and his sons and their families. However, in 1 Samuel, we are presented with the fact that the Amalekites are a direct line, or they have a direct heritage to the people whose evil, whose wickedness brought about the flood. And so the lineage that we get in the Bible is twofold. It's not just Esau's line, it is Esau and this evil people's line. And again, this is not meant to be read as chronicling the genealogy so much as it is meant to spur our minds, to remind us of the animosity towards God. In other words, if we simply read this as a history and a genealogy, we are doing a disservice to what the Bible is trying to tell us, because it's trying to tell us more than simply where a people group came from. It's trying to tell us about their mentality, their outlook on life, and why it is so dangerous for us to allow that mentality and that outlook to persist. It's dangerous, the Bible is telling us, for the Amalekites to exist, not because this people group is inherently bad. No, it's trying to say the worldview expressed by this people group, the worldview espoused by them, is fundamentally incompatible with God, and it needs to be eliminated. What is the worldview that is identified with the Amalekites? One that allows for them to attack Israel without true provocation, just because they feel provoked. So that's a brief history of who the Amalekites are in the Bible. The major takeaway from it, if you've lasted this long in the video, the major takeaway is that we don't honestly know who to identify this people group with. Who are the people who the Bible calls the Amalekites? We don't know. There's no way to know. But what is important for us is that we understand that their mentality and this kind of unadulterated violence needs to be overcome and beaten back. And the fact is that it's not really going to be beaten back with the battle, raising his hand. That's where we go for this week. As always, try to reflection. I would love to hear your comments, your thoughts on this. Who you think the Amalekites might have been, or what you think of them. Questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me. Till we meet again, God bless.